Hi, thank you for your question. So my son, as a lot of you know, is autistic, and he was actually in intensive ABA for probably like 3 or 4 years. He even went to like an actual ABA clinic. Like while I would work, I'd drop him off, and for like 3 to 4 hours, he would be at the clinic like with ABA therapy. So a lot of why I don't support ABA specifically, like when it comes to my son, I'm definitely not gonna touch on too much because like it's his life, it's his experiences, and I want to be respectful of that. But one thing that I do truly regret is not listening to my gut when I was first told that my son needed ABA. I was 24 years old. I had just left his father. It was a very, very toxic and scary relationship. There was a restraining order. We were in court all the time. I was in constant fear of losing my son, like all the time. When my son was diagnosed, I had two professionals come to my house, and one of them I believe was a BCBA, and I think the other was a case manager. They told me about how my son would really benefit from ABA, and I was like, okay, I'll look into it, but I want to talk to his father first about it, just to think about it a little bit more. The restraining order in place allowed us to discuss our son and only our son. There was like special stipulations. He wasn't allowed to like come near me. He wasn't allowed to talk to me about anything else, but we could discuss our son's progress and things like that. And since this was a major decision, like this was something I definitely had to bring up to him. And the woman said to me, well, that's fine. You can totally look into alternative options, but I do have to let you know that if you opt out of ABA, I do have to file a report because it's medical neglect. Which I found out later that is not true. ABA is not mandatory where I live. But I was scared shitless, so I was just like, okay, I wasn't going to fight anything. Now, like I said, over the years, there were red flags and incidences that really were just too much for me that led me to pulling my son out of ABA completely. And after like doing tons of research and being reached out to by so many people who are autistic themselves who have gone through ABA, it's very important to me to speak out about it from time to time, or at least let my stance be known that I do not support it. Speaking out against ABA has honestly been one of the most scary things for me to speak out about, and that's really telling. I mean, I'm a trans person who comes on here like talking about being trans, having HSV2, being in a marriage that's, considered a gay marriage. I mean, these are all things that can potentially be dangerous, especially living in a rural area. But speaking out against ABA has been the scariest. I have had BCBAs get enraged that I've spoken out about it, to the point where one of them, I mean, she was contacting me, harassing me for over a year. I had to contact her job. Now, before I go into why ABA is incredibly abusive, I do have to say that when it comes to parents who have their children in ABA, this isn't a video shaming you. I know how the system works because my son was in ABA for a long time. It's like, I think the only treatment that's even covered by insurance. So a lot of times parents have no option. And honestly, there are a lot of situations where, when a kid is really struggling with symptoms, the parent still has to work. They have to do something. And oftentimes public schools just aren't an option. So I understand why some parents are in a place where they have no option. And just the fact that they're watching this video and trying to educate themselves and looking for signs and keeping an open mind, that means a lot. So just keep in mind that if you or any other parent has their child in ABA, I do think if possible, you should seek out other options. But I don't want anyone to think that I'm shaming what they're doing because I know it's a very difficult situation to be in. Studies have shown a correlation between autistic people going through ABA and directly developing PTSD as a result. The thing is, a main basis for ABA is a punishment reward system. And ABA therapists and BCBAs will argue, that's outdated. We don't do that anymore. But they absolutely do. Having a kid consistently repeat things over and over, like different, tasks and stuff to get a reward, and sometimes I've seen them have to do it to get a basic need. That's punishment. I remember one time when an ABA therapist was in my home, one of my family members was like, oh my God, they're treating him like a dog. And they do. They They do. There's gonna be BCBAs and ABA therapists on this video that say, like, no, my facility isn't like that. That's old stuff, blah, blah, blah. My son is only 10, okay? And when he did go through ABA, we had like an extensive amount of BCBAs, ABA therapists, and they all have to follow a certain protocol. And that protocol is very like punishment and reward based. If you do this puzzle 3 times, you can have a Cheerio. If you stack these blocks 8 times, you can have 10 minutes of iPad. Like, and this goes on. Like, I mean, my kid was in 40 hours a week of ABA for intensive ABA. I mean, it goes on for hours. That's so militant. Another thing about ABA is they're so focused on finding a cure. And you might think, no way, you know, my kid's therapist, they don't ever talk about a cure. They don't ever, but it's there. It's there. They are constantly trying to like repress any autistic traits that anyone in ABA is displaying. They try to alter their stimming. They try to alter the way they think. They try to alter the way they receive information. So this is from the Child Mind Institute. ABA also has very dark origins. It was initially developed by Dr. Ivar Lavas. I never know if I'm saying that right. And a main part of the therapy was, like I said, to normalize or to cure individuals with autism. And they had like very intense and torturous methods, such as making them like stare in the eyes of somebody for prolonged periods of time because, a lot of autistic people find eye contact to be uncomfortable. My son, it took him a long time to make any eye contact. The thing is, inevitably, I always get people on here, like I said, that are BCBAs or ABA therapists, and they'll say, but it's different now. We rectified it. It's not like that anymore. But why are they still utilizing a therapy that is directly based on something that was literally torturous? There are a few BCBAs who I have a lot of respect for because they're taking the time and initiative to really open their eyes to how abusive ABA has been, how, really awful its history is. And they're acknowledging that and really trying to revamp the entire system. But there has been some really awesome ripple effects in me talking about, how I don't support ABA. For instance, I've been reached out to by more than one person about how they were on the path to get their degree to become a BCBA and they switched majors. So that makes it worth it that more and more people, even those who are very far into their education are realizing this isn't something they want to support, and now they know to speak out against it. So thank you for asking.